Before signing a $71 million deal, the result of a lifetime of work, I nearly died from a single sip of wine. And the person who poisoned that glass wasn't a business rival. It wasn't an enemy. It was my own daughter. When I learned the truth, I was standing in the hallway of an upscale restaurant, less than 10 feet from the family dinner table. $59 million had just landed in my bank account. It should have been the happiest night of my life. Instead, a trembling waiter pulled me aside and whispered words that shattered my world. "I think someone put something in your wine." At first, I thought he had made a mistake. Then he said something else. A sentence that, even years later, I still hear every time I close my eyes. "I saw your daughter do it." In that moment, I didn't feel fear. I felt empty. Because when a stranger wants to kill you, it's a crime. But when the child you've held in your arms since the day she was born wants you dead, that's a completely different kind of pain. My name is Walter Greer, and this is the night my family almost became my cause of death. I need to take you back, because nothing that happened at that dinner makes sense without understanding what the 40 years before it looked like. I built Greer Southern Freight out of a rented warehouse off Briley Parkway in Nashville, Tennessee, with 2 used refrigerated trucks, 1 part-time driver, and a wife named Eleanor who believed in me so completely it sometimes felt unfair to everyone else. We started in the late 80s moving pharmaceutical cargo that nobody else wanted, night runs, ice storm runs, holiday runs when every other carrier went dark. Eleanor kept the books at the kitchen table, while our daughter Simone slept in the next room. I used to come home smelling like diesel and road salt, and Eleanor would pour me coffee and sit across from me and say, "Tell me about tomorrow. Not today. Always tomorrow." That was how she thought. That was who she was. We built it slowly. We built it right. By the time I was in my early 60s, Greer Southern had contracts with 4 major pharmaceutical distributors, refrigerated routes running from Tennessee to the Gulf Coast, and a reputation that had taken me 4 decades to protect. When a Dutch acquisition group approached us, I spent 19 months in negotiation. The final number was $71 million. After lawyers, partners, and taxes, $59 million would come to me directly. My CFO shook my hand and told me it was the most extraordinary outcome he had ever witnessed. All I could think about was Eleanor, and how badly I wished she were still sitting at that kitchen table. Eleanor died of pancreatic cancer at 61. 8 months from diagnosis to burial. Too fast. By the time it was over, Simone and I had both been broken open in completely different directions. I went quiet, and she went somewhere I could never quite find. We still had holidays. We still had the birthday calls and the careful conversations where everyone smiles and nobody says what they actually mean. But the warmth was gone, replaced by something fragile I couldn't name, and every time her husband Marcus Calloway walked into a room, I felt that fragility pull a little tighter. Marcus was a man who had never built anything in his life, but he had a remarkable gift for making you believe he was about to. The Bourbon Distillery, the boutique hotel near Germantown, the commercial real estate fund that dissolved after 14 months and 2 lawsuits. Every venture ended the same way, Simone calling me late at night, voice small and apologetic, asking if I could help. Just this once. Over 9 years, just this once had grown past $800,000. He was not building a future with my daughter. He was burning through hers while watching the clock on mine. 2 weeks before the acquisition wire was scheduled to clear, Simone called me. Not a quick check-in. A real call. Her voice was different, softer, almost trembling, like a woman who had been holding something in for a very long time. She said she had been thinking about her mother. She said she missed me. She said Eleanor would have been so proud of everything I'd built, and she cried, and I cried, and by the end of the call I had already agreed to dinner. I should have paused. I should have noticed the timing. 2 weeks before the largest financial event of my life, my daughter, who had kept me at arm's length for years, suddenly calls with tears and tenderness. Desperation is one of the most effective disguises in the world. But I was a lonely man who missed his wife and ached for his daughter. I said yes before she even finished asking. That Thursday evening I put on the charcoal suit Eleanor had picked for me at a store on Church Street years ago. I drove through a light October rain toward the Magnolia Room in Midtown Nashville, and I walked through that door carrying something genuinely dangerous in my chest. Hope. I thought I was walking into a celebration. I thought maybe grief had softened everything between us. I thought maybe the money had given us one last chance to repair what death had broken. I did not know Marcus was already seated, smiling, waiting. He stood when I entered. Big handshake, expensive shoes, perfect teeth. He told me tonight was about honoring everything I had built. 9 years of watching that man practice sincerity, and he was still getting better. Simone sat beside him in a deep burgundy dress, wearing her mother's pearl earrings. For one terrible second, the sight of those earrings almost dismantled every wall I had spent years carefully building. Then I noticed her hand. Every few minutes her left fingers drifted to the small black clutch beside her plate. She didn't open it, didn't adjust it, just touched it the way you touch something you're terrified of losing. I counted without meaning to. 3 times? 7. A Leven. Marcus had ordered Pellegrino. No wine, no bourbon. I had watched this man drink at funerals, at Christmas dinners, at business lunches he had no business attending. Tonight he was nursing sparkling water and watching my glass like it owed him something. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that years of watching him fail had made me suspicious of everything he did. So I cut my steak. I asked Simone about the kitchen renovation. I laughed at a joke that wasn't particularly funny. Outwardly, I looked like a man having a pleasant dinner with his family. Inside, something I hadn't listened to in years refused to settle. Around 8:30, my phone lit up with my CFO's name. I knew immediately. I excused myself and stepped into the corridor near the kitchen entrance. The moment I answered, I heard it in his voice before the sentence finished. "Walter, it cleared. The wire is in. 59 million, confirmed." I closed my eyes. 42 years of Briley Parkway and broken trucks and midnight payrolls and promises made to Eleanor in a kitchen with a coffee cup between us. All of it had just become a number in a bank account. I stayed on the phone while he talked about paperwork. But I was somewhere else. I was thinking about Eleanor. I was thinking about how she used to say that success wasn't the money, it was the morning after, when you had the freedom to choose what came next. When the call ended, I stood in that corridor for another moment, just breathing. That was when I saw him. The young waiter, dark eyes, precise movements, the manner of someone who takes even small things seriously, was passing me with an empty tray. He walked past, stopped, looked toward the dining room, looked toward the kitchen, looked at me. "Sir," barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry. I know this isn't my place." My stomach tightened immediately. "What is it?" He swallowed hard. "Please don't react when I tell you this. I have negotiated across conference tables with men trying to take everything from me. I know what real fear looks like. It doesn't perform, it just sits there, terribly still. While you were on the phone," he said, "your daughter poured something into your wine." I heard the words. My brain understood them. My body refused the message. "I'm sorry?" "A small packet. White powder. She waited until you stepped out. She poured it in and stirred it with her finger under the napkin." The hallway was colder. "You're certain?" No hesitation. "Yes, sir." I watched the entire thing. I looked at him for a long time. I was searching for doubt, for confusion, for any sign that he might be mistaken. I found none. "Why are you telling me this?" His jaw tightened. "Because my father died this way," he said quietly, "and I swore I would never stay silent again." That sentence cut through everything else. I want to pause here for a moment, because I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, how do you process something like that in a restaurant hallway? How do you hear that your only child may have just poisoned your glass and not fall apart? Honestly, you don't process it. Not in the moment. Something else takes over. The part of you that built a company from nothing and survived 42 years of negotiations and lawsuits and loss. That part doesn't feel. It calculates. And so I looked at the young man, his name was Dario, and I told him what I needed. A distraction. 3 seconds of chaos. That was all. He understood without me saying another word. I walked back into the Magnolia room. Simone smiled the moment she saw me, and her hands were folded calmly in her lap, and she looked completely at ease. I was looking at a stranger. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Very good news, actually," I said. The wire cleared. In the half-second before Marcus rearranged his face into something resembling joy, I saw it. Not happiness. Not congratulations for his wife's father. Hunger raw, calculating, already running numbers. The same look I had seen at the end of every pitch meeting when he believed someone was about to write him a check. He didn't move. Simone squeezed my hand. Her palm was damp. She was terrified. Whatever she believed was about to happen, she was terrified of it. We talked. Nobody was listening. Marcus kept glancing at my glass with the patience of a man who believes he only has to wait a few more minutes. Simone kept touching the stem of her water glass, something to hold on to, her eyes on the candle flame. Then Dario came out of the kitchen carrying a tray of desserts. He took 3 careful steps toward our table and stumbled. The crash was spectacular. Plates exploded against the hardwood. Glass shattered. Chocolate launched itself across Marcus's jacket in a wide arc. He lurched backward. Simone gasped and turned. Every head in that private dining room swung toward the sound. I had less than 2 seconds. My right hand moved my wine glass across to Simone's side of the table. My left hand brought hers back to mine, smooth, silent, invisible. When Simone turned back, both glasses sat exactly where they had always appeared to be. Nobody saw a thing. Dario was already apologizing in a cascade of embarrassment, staff rushing to help, Marcus blotting chocolate from his jacket with a napkin and muttering something about incompetence. The room settled. The candles still flickered. The soft music still played. And all I could do was watch my daughter. She reached for what she believed was her own glass, lifted it, brought it to her lips, took a long, slow swallow. My stomach turned completely over. I want you to understand something. In that moment, I did not feel righteous. I did not feel like a man who had outmaneuvered anyone. I felt the specific horror of a parent watching their child walk towards something terrible while being unable to call them back. She had chosen this, or someone had chosen it for her, until the choice became impossible to distinguish from her own, and either way, she was the one walking toward the edge now. I lifted the other glass, never touched it to my lips. "To your mother," I said. A sad, tired smile crossed her face. "To new beginnings." Marcus watched me with almost clinical attention. He was waiting for my hands to begin shaking, waiting for my words to slur, waiting for $59 million to become his. He was still waiting 15 minutes later when Simone loosened her collar. "Is it warm in here?" she murmured. Marcus laughed. "You're always cold. Now you're warm." She didn't answer him. She drank nearly half her water glass in one motion. Then she blinked again, pressed 2 fingers against her right temple. "I don't feel," she stopped mid-sentence. "Something's wrong." Marcus's voice went flat and measured. "You're fine. You've been stressed all week. Just sit back down." She wasn't listening. She pushed her chair back and stood. Her legs didn't cooperate. She grabbed the table edge with both hands, knocking over the water glass, and it shattered on the floor, and then she went down hard, her shoulder hitting the carpet first, her body convulsing beneath her. Her mother's pearl earring skidded loose and disappeared under the neighboring table. I want to slow this all the way down, because this is the moment everything I had believed about my family for 7 years broke open at once. As my daughter seized on the floor of that restaurant, Marcus went completely still for 1 full second. He was not looking at her. He was looking at me, and the expression on his face was not panic. It was not grief. It was not confusion. It was the expression of a man who has just watched a calculation fail and is trying desperately to run a new one in real time. Then he realized people were watching him. The mask came back. He rushed toward her. He called her name. He dropped to one knee beside her and reached for her shoulder. All of it perfectly staged. All of it 2 seconds too late. And every person in that room who had also seen that first second of stillness would remember it for the rest of their lives. A silver-haired man from the adjacent table was already on his knees beside her, calm, competent, checking her pulse, talking to her steadily. I would later learn he was a retired neurologist who had practiced at Vanderbilt for 30 years. In that moment, he was simply the most capable person in the room. The maitre d' was already on the phone. Marcus straightened up. "No ambulance." The urgency in his voice cracked the surface of the room. "We can get her there faster ourselves." The neurologist looked up at him. "Sir," he said very quietly, "if you move her right now, you could kill her." Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. He had just realized that every person in that dining room was watching him argue against calling an ambulance for his unconscious wife. He had just understood what that looked like. He stepped back, said nothing more. The paramedics arrived in 12 minutes. They were calm and fast and frightening in their precision. They prepared to move Simone to a stretcher, and Marcus moved toward the ambulance bay. "I'm coming with her." One of the paramedics shook her head. "One family member only." Before he could respond, I stepped forward. I'm her father. The look on his face in that moment. I have thought about it many times since. It was not the look of a worried husband being left behind. It was the look of a man watching his last point of leverage walk through a closing door. The ambulance doors shut. We pulled into the Nashville rain. Behind us, Marcus Calloway stood alone on the sidewalk, watching the lights disappear. And whatever calculations he was running in that moment, he was running them alone. The emergency room was fluorescent light and cold plastic, and a nurse asking me questions I could barely answer. 20 minutes earlier, I had been celebrating the close of a 42-year career. Now I was watching a hospital clock and asking myself how many warning signs I had chosen not to see. I had missed them because I wanted to believe. That is the answer. Loneliness makes you vulnerable to exactly the evidence you most want to find. She had cried on the phone. She had said Eleanor would be proud. She had said she missed me. And I had needed those things to be true so badly that I had let them override everything my instincts were telling me at that table. Honestly, if you've ever talked yourself out of a gut feeling because the alternative was too painful to accept, then you know exactly the room I was sitting in that night. That feeling of sitting with the knowledge that you already knew and chose not to. A doctor came out just before 11. His face told me the answer before his mouth opened. Your daughter is alive, he said carefully, but she ingested a dangerous quantity of clonazepam combined with alcohol. A dose this size could easily have been fatal. I want to be clear with you, this amount was not accidental. I looked through the corridor window to where Marcus was pacing, hands in jacket pockets, performing anxiety for anyone who happened to glance his way. I told the detective everything. The tearful phone call, Dario's warning in the hallway, the powder, the clutch she kept touching, the Pellegrino, the hunger in Marcus's eyes when I said the wire had cleared, the glass switch, all of it. When I finished, she closed her notebook and asked one question. Do you believe someone intended to kill you tonight? I looked through that glass at Marcus. Yes, I said. I do. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Security footage from the Magnolia room. Text messages recovered from Marcus's phone, thousands of them, spanning years, each one carefully tightening the world around Simone. Her friends stopped calling. Her therapist's observations about coercive control were documented, then became irrelevant when Marcus convinced Simone the therapist was working against her. One by one, every independent voice in her life was removed until the only voice she trusted was his. He told her I planned to leave most of the estate to charity. He told her I blamed her for things she never did. He told her that after Eleanor died, I had stopped loving her the way I used to. None of it was true, but lies told with enough consistency begin to sound like memory. Forensic accountants found forged loan documents bearing Simone's signature, credit lines opened in her name without her knowledge, personal liabilities totaling more than $400,000 she had been carrying without any awareness she was underwater. The worst discovery was a folder on his laptop. Inheritance projections, timeline calculations, breakdowns of estate value based on different possible dates of my death. My death, calculated to the dollar, the tax bracket, the quarter. To him, I was never a person. I was a transaction he had been waiting 9 years to complete. Dario's statement matched mine without a single discrepancy. Marcus held together through approximately an hour of detective questioning, then one careful question too many. She wasn't supposed to. He stopped. The room went completely silent. The detective looked at him. Calm, steady. Wasn't supposed to what? He asked for a lawyer. The handcuffs appeared. He became loud, then louder, claiming misunderstanding, claiming innocence, claiming he loved his wife. Nobody in that hallway was listening to any of it anymore. As they walked him toward the exit, he turned back. His eyes found mine across that corridor for the last time. No charm, no calculation, no mask of any kind. Just pure, cold, years-deep hatred. The kind that comes from a man who spent a decade believing he deserved something and watched someone else hold it instead. Then the door closed, and he was gone from my life. Simone spent 3 weeks in the hospital and 4 months in a recovery facility outside Knoxville. Prosecutors acknowledged the documented years of psychological manipulation and coercive control. They acknowledged her full cooperation once she understood what her husband had actually been doing. A structured treatment agreement kept her out of prison. Some people told me she should have gone. Some people told me I was too forgiving. I told them they weren't her father. Marcus Calloway was convicted on 8 counts, including attempted murder, conspiracy, wire fraud, and identity fraud. The judge handed down 24 years. When they let him out, he didn't look back. 6 months after the trial, I drove to Knoxville on a Sunday morning. The facility was quiet. Leaves had gone gold with the season. They brought me to a small room with 2 wooden chairs and a window looking onto a garden. Simone sat across from me. She looked smaller than I remembered, like something essential had been removed and hadn't fully grown back. The confidence she used to carry was gone. Her eyes were different, clearer somehow, but also frightened in a way I hadn't seen since she was very young. We sat in silence for a long time. If you have ever sat across from someone you love, truly love, knowing that the last year has built a wall between you that neither of you fully knows how to get around, you know that silence. It isn't comfortable. It isn't resolved. It just sits there, asking to be acknowledged. Finally, she looked at her hands and said, "Dad, I don't know who I am without him telling me." Those words hurt more than anything that happened in that restaurant, because for the first time in years, I believed completely that she was telling me the truth. I reached across and put my hand over hers. "Then we'll figure out who you are together," I said. "We've got time." She cried. I cried. We sat in that gold October light and didn't speak for a while. It wasn't a resolution. It wasn't a clean ending. It was just the first honest moment we had shared in longer than either of us could remember. And sometimes, that's exactly what rebuilding looks like. The $59 million went where it needed to go. A trust for Simone, structured, time-locked, overseen by independent trustees and medical professionals. If she rebuilds herself genuinely, it's there when she needs it. If she doesn't, those funds will go to organizations supporting women escaping coercive and controlling relationships. Some people called that cruel. Others called it generous. I didn't care about either assessment. I was done trying to reward or punish anyone. I was just trying to do what was right. A week after the trial ended, I took Dario to lunch. I asked him what he needed most in the world. He didn't mention a car. He didn't mention a vacation. He mentioned his younger sister's tuition and his mother's medical bills. That was it. The people he loved. That was the whole list. I made sure his sister finished school. I made sure his mother received the care she needed. I helped him pursue the culinary apprenticeship he had spent 2 years delaying because the timing was never right. Every dollar I spent on that family felt cleaner than anything I signed in 42 years of business. Some investments return money. That one returned something I don't have a word for. People always ask me what I learned from all of this. And honestly, I've given that question more time than I've given almost anything else in the last 2 years. Because the easy lessons: trust your instincts, money changes people, watch out for red flags, those answers feel true from a distance. Up close, they're not enough. Up close, the real lessons are harder to say out loud. Here is what this experience actually taught me. The first thing it taught me is that manipulation doesn't arrive looking like manipulation. It arrives looking like love. It arrives looking like a tearful phone call, like your daughter's voice going soft the way it did when she was 7 years old and needed something from you. The most dangerous deception I have ever faced in 42 years of business negotiations, lawsuits, competitors trying to bury me. None of it came close to the damage done by a woman saying, "Dad, I miss you," at exactly the right moment. If you are someone who loves deeply, that is your greatest strength and your most exploitable vulnerability at the same time. I am not telling you to love less. I am telling you to notice when love is being used as a door. The second thing, and this one took me longer to accept, is that victims can cause harm. Simone was not a monster. She was a woman who had been methodically isolated from every honest voice in her life, until the only map she had of reality was the one her husband drew for her. That does not erase what she did. But it also means that the story of what happened that night is not as simple as a daughter trying to kill her father for money. It is the story of what happens to a person when they are slowly, carefully cut off from everyone who might tell them the truth. If there is someone in your life right now who seems to have disappeared behind another person's version of who they are, someone who used to be one way and now seems like a stranger that is worth your attention, that is worth a phone call. That is worth the awkward conversation. Because by the time it becomes a crisis, the window to reach them may already be closing. The third thing I learned is the one I am still learning. It is this: surviving something does not automatically make you wise. It makes you tired. Wisdom comes later. slowly, in the quiet hours when the noise of the event has finally faded and you can look at it clearly without the adrenaline. The morning I am wisest is not the morning after the ambulance. It is every ordinary morning since then, on the dock with the coffee, choosing to be curious about tomorrow instead of defined by what happened yesterday. That choice does not get easier, it just becomes more familiar. And there is one more thing, one I almost left out because it is uncomfortable to say. I spent a lot of time after the trial, asking myself whether I had done everything I could for Simone before that night. Whether the distance between us was entirely her husband's work, or whether some of it was mine. Whether I had been so focused on building something she could inherit that I had forgotten to give her something she could hold right now. I don't have a clean answer. What I have is the decision to keep showing up to the Sunday drives to Knoxville, to the phone calls that are still awkward, to the slow, imperfect work of being her father in the years we have left. Not because it is easy, because it is the only thing left that is still mine to give. Now I want to hear from you, not a number, not a vote, something real. Has there ever been a moment in your life when you looked at someone you loved and felt, underneath all the warmth, a flicker of something wrong, a detail that didn't fit, an instinct you talked yourself out of because accepting it would have cost you too much? I'm asking because I think most of us have been in that hallway, not literally, but that space between knowing and admitting, between feeling something and being willing to act on it. If that resonates with you, tell me about it in the comments. Not the whole story if you don't want to. Just one word, one line, one detail that captures what that moment felt like. I read every comment. I mean that. And if this story found you at a strange hour tonight, 2 in the morning, or early before the house wakes up, tell me where you are. Not because I'm collecting locations, because I want you to know that wherever you are right now, someone sat across a table in Nashville 2 years ago and came home, changed, and found a way to keep going, and so will you. If there is someone watching this who is in a relationship right now where the world around them has gotten very small, where the voices they used to trust have gone quiet one by one, where they find themselves believing things about people they love that don't quite match their own memories, please hear this. That smallness is not an accident. You are allowed to make the call. You are allowed to reach back toward the people who knew you before. If you carry something heavy after watching this, the comments are open. I will be there. One last thing. If these stories matter to you, if they give you something to think about, something to carry into a conversation or a quiet moment with yourself, subscribe. Not because the algorithm needs it, though it does, but because the next story is already waiting, and I'd like you to be here when I tell it. There are more Darios in the world than we know. There are more people who stopped in a hallway and chose to speak. Those stories deserve to be told, and they deserve an audience that actually listens. Thank you for being here tonight. This is a fictional story inspired by real emotional experiences. Fully rewritten and reimagined in Nashville, Tennessee, to create original content. Any resemblance to real people, places, or events is entirely coincidental.